Hey guys, it's Ramona. Welcome back to my channel. Happy, finally, spring weather in Canada. Like spring, almost summer, because today feels a lot like summer. So super excited. I'm sure you guys are excited. I don't like the heat, so today's a little bit too hot for me, but I won't say that too loudly because I know everybody likes the heat. But in today's video, we are going to be talking about all the books I read in the month of May. In the month of May, I read 14 books. 5 of those were ebooks, and then the others were physical books. That also included ones I got from the library, ones I bought, one I got in my Callisto Crate box, and I did an unboxing that featured that book. So I will go through. I won't do this in any particular order, I don't believe. I just have them stacked here, and I will go through them as they're stacked here. And yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so the first one, the top of the pile, is The Good Luck Charm by Helena. So she's actually a Canadian author. This is the second book that I'm reading from her. And I have another one that I'm reading for the month of June as a part of a buddy read. And this one was a cute rom-com. It featured Lila and Ethan. They basically grew up together from they were very small kids, and then through high school they were together. And then Ethan got drafted to the NHL and left town and broke off his relationship with Lila, and it basically follows Ethan when he comes back to town because he's traded to their local hometown team, and then his dad also got a stroke. They ended up running into each other in the hospital that Lila works, and it follows their reconciliation. So it's a fun book. This one I gave 4. It is a very steamy book, and I actually talked about this one on my Bookstagram a little bit because how I ended up reading this book, I had it on my bookshelf for a very long time. I got it in a book outlet haul a couple months ago, and I don't know, like I just felt like I wanted to read a steamy book, and I actually searched the hashtag on Bookstagram, and this was one of those suggestions that came up. So I read it, and I read it pretty fast because again, it was just a fun, quick rom-com read. But yeah, if you don't like steam, and when I say steam for the non-bookish people, it means that there are lots of sex scenes, described sex scenes. So if that is not your thing, this may not be the book for you, but if you don't mind that, sure, give it a go. So I really love this, and I'm looking forward to her next book that I will be reading for Buddy Read. The next 3 books I have here, oh my god, I have discovered a favorite author. I always say I don't have a favorite author, and I still would say I don't. Jojo Moyes, I love her a lot because I've probably read most of her books. But Abby Jimenez, I have had these books for a while. This one came out recently, and I got all of them around the same time. And I don't know, something told me to get all of them before I started reading it, and I'm super glad that I did that, because after I finished the first one, if I didn't have the second one to start reading at the same time, I probably would have gone mad. So the first one is The Friend Zone. So it's a series including The Friend Zone, the Happy Ever After playlist, and then the last one, which came out recently, is Life's Too Short. I love her. Her writing is amazing. They're rom-coms, but they all tackle super deep topics, and I like that. Like it wasn't just like about the romance and people getting together and the happily ever after. It actually covered some pretty heavy topics. So in The Friend Zone, it featured Kristen and Josh, and Kristen actually had some health issues that she thought would result in her not being able to have children. And of course, Josh was from a huge family and wanted a lot of kids. So that was something that kept her from wanting to commit to him. And she did have an author's note at the back of the book that did state that this book is based on an actual friend of hers who had similar health issues and actually went on to having kids naturally. So yeah, it was really, really, really good. I gave this one a 4 out of 5. The only reason to get a solid 5 for me is a reason I can't say because it will spoil the book, but there's this really sad thing that happened, which kind of was, I guess I don't have to spoil it because it's kind of the reason for book 2. So somebody died in this one. I won't say who. And then I was so sad about it. I was like, what did you have to kill him? Yeah, I cried. I was so sad. But yeah, so the Happy After playlist. This one features Sloane and Jason. And Sloane, of course, her fiance was the one who died. Guys, don't watch this video if you're gonna read these books because it's gonna be spoiled. I'll put a spoiler alert in the description, or yeah, I'll try to do something. Yeah, so Sloane's fiance died in this one. So this one is Sloane and Jason. So this is 2 years after, and Sloane, she spent the last 2 years depressed. I mean, come on, her fiance died like probably the week of their wedding. Oh my God. I'm gonna cry again. It was so sad. But anyway, in this book, she met Jason, and how she met Jason was she left her house and this dog ran out in front of her and jumped on her car. Crazy as crap. And then the dog, of course, had a tag. She was trying to get the owner, couldn't get through to him. She called so many times, left messages, put up posters, and then finally he reached out to her. Happens that he's a musician who was on tour in Australia, left the dog with a friend who was clearly a flake, didn't take care of the dog. The dog escaped, and the dog played a very big part in the story as well. So this covered, as much as it's a rom-com, it covered really heavy topics, right? Because this is somebody recovering from losing their fiance the week of their wedding and finding love again. That can't be an easy thing. Again, it was a super emotional book. I think I cried in every single one of these books. Yes, guys, I cry a lot. I cry a lot. And then the last one in the series was Life's Too Short. And this one features Vanessa and Adrian. So Adrian is Josh's cousin. Josh is the main character from the first book. Adrian is his cousin. Vanessa is young, a famous YouTuber, finds herself now stuck with her sister's child because her sister has drug addiction issues and she's Adrian's neighbor. And again, this book covers very, very, very heavy topics because Vanessa lost her sister and her mom. Both of them died. Her sister died of genetic disorder that her mom also had and would eventually have died from it, except she died in a car accident before the disorder eventually killed her. And so Vanessa decides to quit her job, tour the world, start a YouTube channel, doing all these things because in her mind, in another year, she could be gone, right? And so she lives her life with that in mind. Oh my God, guys, these books are so good. They're my favorites. And she's now one of my faves. Yeah, so these were very, very good. You guys should read them. They made me very happy. This was one of the last books I read in the month of May, The Simple Wild. And this book is also a series, also a Canadian author. I also, after I finished this one, bought the other books in the series because it was that good. This was a 5-star read for me. It follows Kala and Jonah. Kala was born in Alaska. Her dad is a bush pilot in Alaska. Her mom couldn't stand living in Alaska, so she left Alaska when Kala was 2 years old, moved back to Toronto, where she's originally from. So that's where Kala grew up. Then she gets a message basically that her dad, who she hasn't seen since she was 2 years old, is sick and dying. And so she goes back to Alaska to meet her dad, get to know her dad. And it follows their story. Guys, it's a theme here. I cried. I cried during this book. It was so good. It was so well written. But just the relationships with her dad and her and her stepdad, her mom and her stepdad, her mom and her dad, and her parents still loving each other but can't be together because one is is in Alaska, another one is a city girl who cannot fathom living her life in Alaska. And then comes Jonah, the hot bush pilot. Yeah, so it was really good. It covered some heavy topics, death, because I cried because her father was really sick. He had cancer, eventually died. So sad. But anyways, it was really good. And of course their love story was really great. It was they hated each other in the beginning because he thought she was a posh city girl and to her he was just a yeti. So it had a really fun romance as well, but it also, as I said, covered some heavy topics of heavy family dynamics and eventually forgiveness and being able to move on from that. And yeah, it was really good. And I got the others in the series and I'm looking forward to reading them and I'm super excited. Next one I read is Lucky, and this one is a crime fiction. So it follows Lucky, who is a grifter. I did not know that word before I read this book. It actually is on in the dedication of the book. The word is in the dedication of the book, and I'm like, I have no idea what that means, and I had to Google it. And I did a poll on my Bookstagram stories, and most people did not know what that meant either. So a grifter is basically somebody who steals things. I think something along that lines. So it follows Lucky, who basically grew up with a dad who was one of those people who was like always on the hustle, a trickster, like always finding some random scheme of a way to make money and make ends meet. And they were constantly moving around because, of course, he does a scam here. He has to run to go somewhere else so he doesn't get caught. That's how she grew up. She grew up learning how to steal and lie and trick people. And of course, the guy she ends up with, he grew up exactly like her. His mom was also a hustler, a trickster. So it follows Lucky. She and Carrie, that was her boyfriend. They broke up. He basically tricked her out of the money they stole together. So the book follows her life as a kid growing up with her dad, how she eventually got into the trouble that she got into with Carrie and all the money that they embezzled. Then she wins the lottery. She wins the lottery. And of course, she's on the run because they embezzled millions of dollars. Their faces are all over the national news. So there's no way she can go in and claim a lottery ticket. Oh gosh, this is so good. This book was really, really, really good. And the storytelling was amazing. It kept you guessing. Like, it actually kept you guessing all the way throughout of like what's significant of each character in the book, because it went back all the way to when she was a baby and being found on the church step, and the Catholic sister who was involved in that, and her mother. And it was so much to think about, so much complexity in the story. So it was so good. For me, this was like 4.5. I loved it. It was a book that we read for a buddy read on Bookstagram, and we actually had the author Marissa Stapley. So she actually did a Zoom chat with us to discuss the book. And that was amazing. That was one of the highlights of my month. But yeah, I really, really love this. It's great. Go pick it up, guys. She's also a Canadian author. There are lots of Canadian authors this month, because here's another Canadian author. So Uzma, I did a video on this book, so I will link it above so you can watch it. This book was featured in my unboxing of my Callisto Crates box. So I talked a lot about it then, so I won't talk a lot about it now, but I loved this book. Again, it was a rom-com, but covered some heavy topics: Islamophobia, racism, different kind of family drama dynamics and things like that. But really, really loved it. Go pick it up. Give it a read. All the other books I read in the month of May were library books that I had to return because I'm a good library user. and ebooks that I read, as most of them were advanced reader copies. So the other ones I read was The Last Train to Key West by Chanel Cleeton, and that was a historical fiction that featured it was 1930s in Florida, a big hurricane that came through. It followed three women. So it followed Elizabeth, Martha, and Helen. I loved that book. All three women came together in Key West, different things pulling them together, different situations pulling them together. Helen grew up in Key West. Elizabeth was there from New York, basically running away from New York, coming to Key West looking for her brother who was fighting in the war. And Martha was a Cuban who was basically forced to marry a New Yorker, Anthony, because of the issues that her family found themselves in Cuba at the time. And they basically, Anthony bailed out her parents in exchange for marrying her. Anthony, of course, was involved in different illicit activities in New York, and the mob scene and things like that. But it was just amazing to me how all three of them, they all came together, how they connected, the story connected with all three of them. Did not see it coming. Like, you knew going in, because the synopsis did talk about the fact that they all became connected somehow throughout the story, but you just did not see it coming. And I learned so much. Like, I learned about different hurricanes that happened during that time. Did not know that. Also didn't know about the fact that there used to be a train service from the mainland to Key West, and it followed the whole history of how that was built and eventually how it was destroyed by the hurricane. So loved that one. So that was a library book. The other, did I read another library book? I don't think so. I'm looking at everything here. Yes, I did read another library book. So I read Second First Impressions by Sally Thorne. That was a brand new book, just came out a couple weeks ago. The reason I really wanted to read that book, it was a highly anticipated read for me, because The Hating Game is one of my favorite rom-coms of all times. I have reread that book probably twice, and it's actually being made into a movie that's coming out hopefully sometime soon. So I really wanted to enjoy Second First Impression, and I think I went into that with very high expectations just because of how much I enjoyed The Hating Game. And I think that potentially impacted me enjoying the book, because I had way too high of expectations. And I did see somebody write a review, and that's exactly what she said. And I thought about it, and I was like, if I didn't love The Hating Game as much as I loved it, I probably wouldn't have been so hard on the Second First Impression. But unfortunately, it was just like a 3 out of 5 for me. I didn't love the characters. Like, I just didn't love them. So it was Ruthie and Teddy. I loved Ruthie, and I love the secondary. There were some really cool secondary characters as well. And so Ruthie works in like a retirement village that is owned by Teddy's father, who bought it with the aim of basically demolishing and rebuilding like modern buildings and things like that. Ruthie, the secondary characters, so like the older women in the story who lived in the retirement village, loved the banter, loved the learning their life experiences, and it covered some really interesting topics as well, things that people are thinking about, but I can't say what it is, because when I think back to it, I realize it will spoil a very big part of the story if I say that. So sorry, can't say that again. But Teddy, like, it was weird, like the way she described him, like he had long hair, and his hair was like even better than the women that he dated, and blah blah blah. And I'm just like, I don't know, like I didn't find that hot. Like, I didn't find a guy with hair that's better than girls, like, hot. Like, maybe because I've traditionally never been, like, attracted to men with long hair. So it was hard to, like, find, I don't know what I didn't get what I needed from it. I went in with too high expectations, and that's probably the problem. So tell me if you've read this book and what your thoughts were. Didn't love it. So that was just a 3 for me. I'm going to go through these last couple books pretty fast because this video is getting kind of long. So the other books that I read the rest were all ebooks. So A Match Made in Paradise by Barbara Dunlop. This was my first time reading a book from her. This was a 3-star read for me. It was a rom-com based in Alaska. with bush pilots, very similar to The Simple Wild. I just didn't love it as much, but it was still a cute read, like a book that I would still definitely recommend for others to read. We also had Crazy About a Cowboy, which also was an advanced reader copy from the publisher. Thanks Berkeley Romance for that. And this was a small town set in romance, small town in Texas, vying to win the most romantic town title. And so you have Delilah, who's a beauty queen, who is basically going through Texas judging this contest, and she meets Jasper, who's a local farmer. So that was a cute story as well. That was a 3-star read for me. Also read a book called Beautiful Bastard by Christina Lauren. Like, I love Christina Lauren, but this book is very different from their typical books. I think this one may have been self-published, and their other books are with major publishers. So this one was like a very steamy, not a lot of plot kind of book, just like to get your mind off of what's going on in this crazy world kind of book, I would say. And then the last one I wanted to talk about was The Road Trip by Beth O'Leary. I love Beth O'Leary, and I love her books. The Flat Share was one of my favorite books in 2020, I want to say. So I love that book, and I had very high expectations going in for The Road Trip. Unfortunately, it fell flat for me. So that book got like 2.5 stars, which I think is the lowest rating I've done for a book in a very long time. And that was because for me, like, liking the characters in the books that I read is super important. And I just didn't connect with any of them. Addie, I liked Addie, like Addie and Dylann, like I liked them. But like the secondary characters played such a major role in the story. Like they almost felt to me like main characters. And one of the major ones was Marcus. And oh my God, like I've never actually read a book with a character this unlikable. Like I could not stand the guy. Like I was like, why are you in this story? Why is there so much of you? And unfortunately, the plot and everything else couldn't make up for that. I love the setting of it. Like parts of it was set in France. Love the small town feel. Love it was an Insta romance when they met initially. So the book is in 2 different. So it's the timelines are in the past when they met when they were younger, and now when they met up again on their way to a wedding of a friend, and somehow Dylan's car smashed into Addie's car. But anyway, it was a cute story and setting, but for me, honestly, the characters just spoiled it for me. So unfortunately, I feel bad giving poor ratings for books because, and I know that other people may love it. With this one, honestly, I did see a lot of mixed reviews. Like there were so many people who felt the same way that I felt, but I also saw people who gave it a 5-star. So again, it just proves that we all have different tastes in books, and that's okay. But that one was a miss for me. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. That's my wrap up of all the books I read in May. This will be a long video. I apologize, but I hope you watched to the end. If you like this video, please like it, comment, tell me what you read in May, tell me what's on your to be read list for June, and subscribe to my channel, please. So thank you guys for watching, and happy reading.